Well, February Fantasy Stories has finished. Let's wrap it up. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be wrapping up February Fantasy Stories, which is a project I took part in as part of the creation of the Bookish Bryants. If you haven't checked out their channel, head over there for a look. They're really good and they have awesome content there as well. So the project involved taking the fantasy genre and breaking it up into 4 separate subgenres to look at each week. The first subgenre was classic fantasy for week 1. Week 2 was sword and sorcery. Week 3 was dark fantasy, and week 4 was urban fantasy. So for week 1, just to recap a little bit, I chose Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, which I've reviewed on the channel, which was a really good read for me. I hadn't read it since I was 14 years old, and for the most part enjoyed it, but there were a couple of cons that I go through in that video if you wanted to check it out. Week 2 for Sword and Sorcery was probably my favourite subgenre. I chose a couple of Conan the Barbarian stories from the Chronicles of Conan by Robert E. Howard. I was amazed at how Robert E. Howard was ahead of his time as far as his writing style goes. I found the action sequences and fighting scenes just absolutely incredibly written, very lyrical and classically written. It was just amazing, and I would definitely be reading more of Howard's work moving forward. Week 3 was a disappointment. I did Mr. Be Gone by Clive Barker. It was that disappointing that I didn't end up finishing the book. Just wasn't my cup of tea, but I'm not going to sit here and write Clive Barker off. I know he's written a really large body of work that's brilliant, and I plan on reading a little bit more of his stuff in the future as well. And week 4 was urban fantasy, and for that I chose Side Jobs by Jim Butcher, which was a group of Harry Dresden stories which have varying lengths, some up to novella length, and some, even one was a vignette, and a couple of shorter stories as well. So I didn't read every story in the book. Sometimes when I read anthologies and short stories, I really have to be in the mood for them. And in week 4, I didn't find myself overly in the mood to read every single story, but I read a few and got a lot of enjoyment out of them. The Something Borrowed, that story was quite good. It was about Harry attending a wedding for one of his friends, and the bride in question gets threatened by a fairy, and Harry saves the day just in time. But things I like about the Harry Dresden stories is at the start of that story he's getting fitted for his tuxedo, and the opening line says, he describes a piece of metal embedded in his leg, but it actually turns out to be the tailor's pin that pricks him as he's getting fitted up with his tuxedo. And just his one-liners, like he's talking to Detective Murphy and he says, "Come on, I'll pay you in donuts," and it was just really funny. And some of the things I weren't aware of from only reading 3 of the books so far. I plan on reading Summer Night, the 4th book in the series, in March as part of my TBR. But what I'm really fascinated with was this undertown, so the underground of Chicago, which is a realm of all these supernatural beings that I had no idea about. In one of the stories there was a troll that lived under a bridge that Harry battles, and I just found that fascinating. Now, I didn't read some of the stories that take place after the book called Changes, because it's such a pivotal book from what I've heard from people on BookTube. I didn't really want to spoil anything because some of the stories you have to know what went on in Changes to actually enjoy those, so I didn't actually read any of those ones. But I found Day Off, I think it was called, where Harry is coveting a rare day off, and he has plans with his girlfriend, and those plans go awry. So something happens, and Harry's day off is ruined. He has to contend with a disaster, and he also has to contend with his apprentice making a lot of damage downstairs in his cellar laboratory. So I found a lot of enjoyment with that one, but when I get a bit more time and when I'm actually in the mood to read a few more short stories in the Dresden series, I will do that. I probably would wait until after I've read Changes before I go back and read the rest of them. But that said, the stories I read were really enjoyable. I did get a kick out of them, so that was great. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Scott and Becky Bright for putting on the project. It was a real eye-opener for me. It got me out of my reading comfort zone, which is what 2022 is all about for me, since I'm branching off into classics and other things, even the Star Wars extended universe. I'm dipping my foot into that in a big way this year as well. Now, normally I don't read a lot of science fiction, but with the Star Wars EU in particular, it's been a long time since I read the Thrawn trilogy, which came out, which was set after Return of the Jedi. So the Heir to the Empire is on my TBR for March, so I plan on getting stuck into that. But just reading subgenres I normally wouldn't read was an eye-opener for me, and it just made me aware of what material is out there that I can actually expand my horizons a bit with my reading, which is what this is all about. So I've never had so much variety in reading since forever. My reading tastes were always pretty linear, just reading, crime and thriller mainly, and a bit of horror, and a lot of Stephen King and Dean Koontz, and I really wanted to branch out, and the Bookish Bryants' project did actually help with that a lot. So I'm very appreciative of that. Thanks, guys. And I'm looking forward to doing more projects with Scott and Becky. There is something really cool coming up in May that I'll be doing with them, along with quite a few people who are going to be co-hosting, which will be great. And I'm also going to be doing a read-along with Scott and a couple of others with the Count of Monte Cristo. I think is happening in about August, and I'm really looking forward to that, because Count of Monte Cristo is one of the books you have to read. It's on my bucket list, and will certainly set a record, because for me the longest book I've read is The Stand, or It, by Stephen King. This novel by Alexander Dumas is 1400 pages. It's a behemoth, but certainly looking forward to it. So I'm going to make sure I get through a lot of my TBRs before I get to that, but really looking forward to it. So thank you, Scott and Becky Bright, for the opportunity. Really enjoyed that project, and I look forward to doing more activities with you in the future. Now, as to what's coming up on the channel, I am in the process right now of doing my first reading vlog, and I've chosen an incredible book called Boy's Life by Robert R. McCammon. Where has this guy been all my life? I don't know, but it's based upon recommendations I've had from other booktubers, where it's a must-read. It's the perfect coming-of-age tale, and they're certainly not wrong. And that video will be coming out sometime next week. I plan on finishing the book in the next 24 hours. I've just ripped through it. I've enjoyed every minute of it, but I'll also be doing a weekly wrap-up as well, or weekly update very shortly, and moving forward I'll probably put out a few other short videos as well, and we'll see how we go. But please don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, if you feel like putting comments down below with some feedback, I will always respond to those. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you to all my current subscribers. You've been great, and until next time, see you later.